Hi everyone! Today I wanted to talk about the concept of creativity and the role that it plays in our witchcraft. I've talked a little bit about libido and its relation to creative energy, but what I really want to touch on today and what is really alive for me right now is the concept of creativity and the creative process. So I think that the first and most powerful message that I can send about creativity is that it is not about what we as human beings produce. The production function of creativity is a mirror of the society that we live in. So when we think about creativity in this way, that we're supposed to be producing something or that there's supposed to be some kind of outcome that receives validation or contributes to society or even to our community or to our livelihood, that is a similar energy, but it's different because creativity itself is about the experience and the embodiment of our identity and our sovereign experience of reality as creators, as gods walking around earth, creating as God did on a slower time scale because we're in the third dimension. So when we think about creativity as a means of production, then we're thinking more in a materialist sense of what creativity is capable of in this world, which is true. Humans are excellent visualization machines and we are architects, and legend has it that one of the reasons that we're really popular in the solar system is because we do have the ability to create in a way that can we can visualize and conceptualize and then put that into the world. Architecture is a really great example of that. The way that we are really obsessed with aesthetic and we dress ourselves and we create little altars. But this tangible piece of it is really just one piece. And the shadow of that piece, the piece that is so beautiful and so wonderful about us, the shadow of the material aspect is that it does look a lot like capitalism. And when we don't do our inner work around things like money and security and society as a whole, when we ignore things like politics and history and all of that other earthy stuff, if we're not able to cope with the dark side of the third dimension and the ways that the economy and society have done us as humans wrong and have done the most vulnerable of us wrong, if we're not coping with that and we're not finding a way to do our shadow work around it, which can really just look like grieving it, however you grieve, you can grieve those things. But then the toxified version, if it's not being worked on, comes out in our creative life. And what that can look like is saying, I need to make money for this, or I'm only good at this if people give me a certain amount of likes on Instagram, or, I'm not creative. I just don't have that gene, I don't like to create. I'm not really good at it. And so those things that are so powerful and wonderful about our ability to create in the third dimension get not toxified, because I already said that, and it's close to that, but it's not that word. The word isn't coming to me. It's probably not meant to be. But it bleeds into our work, and it bleeds into our relationship with creativity and our relationship with producing things in the world. So if you want to remove some blockages to having a creative life, one thing you can do is simply turn away from the material and turn towards the spiritual, which is difficult to do because we do live in the third dimension and we probably have started a lot of soul contracts here. And so we feel really attached. Like, oh shit, I have to wake up at this time every day and then nonstop, moment to moment to moment. I'm occupied with things and then I get energetically exhausted. And those things are 100% true. That's part of the society that we live in. That is not a truth of your identity as a creative person. It is a cage that you have been put in order to redirect your creative energy, not to your own satisfaction or your own experience, but to direct your creativity to a machine that says it serves humanity, but actually drains it of its life force. So understanding that relationship between our inability to connect with our creativity and the societal structures that are around us, understanding that relationship can help us find wiggle room. And the reason it helps us find wiggle room is because we start to understand that those circumstances exist outside of us, but our creative sovereign energy exists inside of us. And in order to bring that out, we have to make room, which means disconnecting little parts of our lives from the machine. It is brave work to do that. And whatever that feels like it means for you, you should start going for it. But not to make it all about politics, because it's definitely not. Let's talk about the spiritual aspects of creativity and the creative process, which is that we are created in God's image and we have the power to create and manifest on this earth. We experience a lot of resistance to that because we are working through soul karma and soul contracts, not just in this life, but not just from this life, but from previous lives. And the creative process itself is sex magic. And when we look at nature and we see that there are pollinators and birds and flowers and grass and allergens that, inflame our sinuses and make us tear up, there's sex going on all around us. And then a mirror of that is the creativity that exists inside of us. And we are all perfect designers of our reality. And as we work through our lifetimes, we come to a greater understanding of that. And we learn to liberate ourselves from the things that are blocking us, not just, as we talked about earlier, on the outside, but the things that are blocking us on the inside. And it is great and holy work to work through those resistances, like insecurity, being punished for being creative when we're young, being told that being an artist isn't a real job, or just the perception that we have of artists is not contributing to society. And there's a lot of dissonance between the way that we treat artists that are in our communities and that are in our direct worlds. And I say in the class that I'm in, being an artist is not socially acceptable. In the class that I'm in, you have to work for a living. And if you make time for art, you make time for art. But there's other classes in the world that have 100% accessibility to not only exploring their creative expression, but producing art and finding patronage for that art. Which, if you look at history, that's been a pattern. It's been a little bit of a pattern. But when we zoom in and we really start to look at our own relationship with creativity, we probably find a lot of wounds around it. And one of the ways that we can heal those wounds is by coming to a better understanding of who we are as people, and who we are as artists, and who we are as gods that inherently walk this earth with a sovereign power to create our own reality. And in creating our own reality, it really means being in the creative flow at all times. And we have access to that flow if we're able to find a rhythm for it, which sometimes means like third dimension, other dimensions, third dimension, other dimensions all day. Or it could be third dimension most of the time, and then other dimensions maybe 1 month out of the year, right? It really just depends on what the rhythm for this lifetime is. But when we're engaging in creative flow, we are connecting with Source, because Source created us with the exact same power that Source has to create realities and create worlds. So my creative process normally looks like, laying around and being exhausted for a while, and then I finally receive some divine inspiration by the grace and mercy of God, and I dance. And watching myself dance or watching my shadow dance is a really great way for me to start to access the relationship between the aesthetics and my power over them. And this is what's been so powerful about my shadow work lately, over the past few years, is trying to find safety and sovereignty in my body, And I'm very blessed and privileged to be able-bodied. And so one way that I connect to art, if I am having like writer's block or not really feeling super creative, is just to focus on the base relationship between the fact that my soul is in this body and my soul can express myself with this body. And then that energy can start moving into my hands and then eventually into my mind. And that's just for me. Everyone probably has a different relationship with their own creative energy. And the creative process itself is very related to magic and to alchemy and to sex magic. The thing is, the creative process, when we're talking about creating humans, thank God we have permission to do that, and thank God we have power to do that, for those of us that are privileged enough to, is really about the divine feminine and the divine masculine finding a cohesive and cooperative relationship. And so when we think about sex magic, sometimes we're thinking about people doing that, like regular old penetrative vanilla sex. But in the grand scheme of things, it's really about the dynamics of masculinity and femininity at every dimension, merging to create a cooperative environment. So that looks like in our society, in our community, and also in ourself. And so when we are unlocking and exploring those energies within ourselves and we're able to merge them, which for me happens unconsciously, but if you're looking for ways to really activate your creative power, you can consciously drop in to your feelings of femininity and your feelings of masculinity and start to understand that their cooperation within you is what creates a creative divine power. What else do I want to say? Oh, creativity is, I want to dispel the myth that being creative means being an artist. Being an artist is another thing that's kind of tainted with capitalism, unfortunately. But creativity is really about you experiencing your own power and you feeling your own creative power. And whatever that looks like is going to be different. It's going to be different for everyone. For some people, it really is just drawing or painting. For other people, it's running a household. It's starting a business. It's participating in a family. It is creating communities, creating, anything that you can create. Everything that exists here on earth, like everything, we are stewards of it. We have the divine ability to take resources that are here and turn them into something else. We have severely, as a human animal, totally fucked that up. We went too far. We didn't realize. Now we know. But we opened up a lot of doors for understanding accessibility. And so I understand the karmic spiral. I don't judge it. I think it's beautiful and wonderful. But to zoom back in to your relationship with creativity, your relationship with creativity is important because of the judgments that we have around what it is to be a human. And it is directly connected to our self-worth. So my prayer is that you find not a creative process, not a hobby, but an actual real relationship with your creative energy and with the process of creation. Something that it's really something only you can give to yourself, is an understanding of the relationship between who you are and what you're able to create. And I feel like this is such a small aspect of manifestation, even though we do talk about like law of attraction and manifesting our reality and all that bullshit. Really, what I try to focus on when I'm focusing on any of these concepts is the experience that I'm having in the moment feels good. That's honestly it. If it hurts and it's bad, and I'm trying to be creative and I'm trying to force it, that's not a healthy relationship with my creativity, right? A healthy relationship with my creativity is being kind to my creativity when it's not feeling its best And it's listening to my creativity when it asks me for attention, right? So I look forward to your divine connection with your divine self and your sovereign creation, which you have the right to do. If no one's given you permission yet, meditate about it. I'm here to tell you right now. I'm sending lots of love.